Our session, Rebuilding the Backbone, Innovative Workforce Solutions Across ABA, SUD, and Mental Health, sponsored by Care Predictor, is starting now in Session Room A.
Behavioral healthcare has a massive blind spot. Your EMR tracks clients, but you have zero visibility into your team's actual impact on outcomes. The result? Higher AMA rates, and millions in revenue gone. Care Predictor is the answer, the early warning system your leadership has been missing. Care Predictor, the intelligence behind better people, better care, and better margins.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on this panel. And the panel is titled Innovative Workforce Solutions Across ABA and SUD and Mental Health, Rebuilding the Backbone. So I would say that the workforce is not only the backbone, but the foundation and the engine. Really, people do propel our performance and our purpose, I would say. Who here agrees with that?
Yeah.
So you'll have a passion about the workforce, and so we have a great group of panelists here that all have a passion and much experience about supporting the workforce and innovating in that regard. So I'm excited about this panel. First, we've got Dave on our panel here, and Dave Johnson is the CEO of Alea Health Group currently. He's been an executive in the addiction treatment space for 25 years as an owner, operator, senior leader. Currently at Alea, he's serving over 1,000 clients daily across 12 states. And he also serves as the board chair of Spiro Recovery Center. So welcome, Dave, if you would please. Give him a hand. Yeah. Thank you, Dave, for being up here. And then we have Jen Carvalho, who is a behavioral healthcare executive and advisor for more than 20 years. I don't believe that one bit. It's only 10 years, 5 years. You don't look that old to do 20 years. Yeah, so with extensive experience, including roles as president, CEO, COO, consultant, advisor. She's passionate about building resilient teams and creating compassionate, effective systems of care. Please welcome Jen Carvalho, please. And last but not least, we have Dr. Mala. Dr. Mala was the former chief clinical officer at recovery.com, where she brings deep clinical leadership and expertise in industrial organizational psychology. That one's always a tongue twister for me, but it's much needed. And she's now at Care Predictor. Welcome to the Care Predictor team.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in her role as VP of Clinical Integration, she's advancing clinical integration, leadership development, and scalable training to strengthen care delivery and improved outcomes. So thank you all panelists for being here. I'm excited about what you guys are going to share with the group here. First, let's talk about the human connection. And we often treat the workforce shortage as a numbers game, right? Like, how are we going to fill that role? What is our turnover? How many positions are open currently? And from my perspective at Care Predictor, we see that the therapeutic alliance is the greatest predictor of success. And so my question to you is, how do you move beyond filling seats to identify the specific traits that are needed to be effective in the workforce? Things like empathy, resilience, sociability, things of this nature that actually move the needle for patients, those that matter the most. Dave, let's start off with you. What are you doing to sort of quantify and get more insight into who is the persona that really is effective in our workforce? It's a moving target and it's hard to quantify.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and thanks for everybody for being here. I guess when we're going through the hiring process, we try to identify certain traits that are going to work well with clients. I mean, with the 1,000 people that we have in treatment, it's a variety of people in different levels of care. And so all of those positions kind of incorporate different things. We have administrative positions, we have healthcare nursing, we have clinical positions, and then we have those kind of what's considered those lower level tech kind of positions. And so one of the things I think we've tried to look at from the questions perspective is looking at that background of that client, trying to do some kind of assessment of prior work history, education, all the things that person has brought into their prior work experience. What can they bring the client with that operational background to be able to help them on a, like you said, a personal basis? Do they have the personality to do that? And we have to do that through the interview phase. I'll be honest, there's not a lot of tools that at our disposal at the moment to be able to really identify that outside of some of the testing and personality testing and just plain hardcore interviewing through a real motivational interviewing and a real understanding of that person. But as a high volume employer, I'm not going to lie and try and tell the group that it becomes the latter.
Yeah.
It becomes a situation where I have capped beds. I have a ratio where I need X amount of nurses for X amount of clients, and I have to fill those positions. And my orientation process and my training process does not support those employees to where that retention of them works out really well because I haven't done what you're describing.
Yeah.
Now that would be an ideal situation, and I think that that's something we're going to discuss here in this discussion. But the reality is trying to fill positions at some of these sites. Again, every city's different, every state's different. But when I'm in 15, 20 different states, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And it does become a numbers game.
I love that you actually, are saying and acknowledging the challenge, because it is a big challenge for us.
Biggest, in my opinion.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Dr. Molla, what would you say about that?
Yeah. We have to use data to really protect the work that we're doing and to be able to operationalize on what we're trying to bring into the system, right? So being able to identify it and say, okay, I know this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, but then have a tool that would enable you to not only predict but also protect the integrity of what we're doing. That's key. That's how we're going to really make a difference in our workforce and in this industry.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Jen, do you have something to offer on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, first of all, Dave, for calling out the real challenges, the real operational challenges that
Great
we face
opening.
with the workforce. And I just appreciate and honor your bravery for saying it on the stage.
Get used to it.
Seriously,
Sorry.
I mean, we're all struggling, but the reality, I think what you're asking, Michael, is, how do we go from quantity to quality?
Yeah.
And that's what's really critical here. For us, it's about using every tool at our disposal to start finding those quality metrics when we're hiring, and then supporting that quality once we have hired so that we can create retention and stickiness with our teams. So every tool available to us, Care Predictor being a real leader for us, it's been very helpful in identifying the qualities that we're looking for in a key team member.
And you are a client of Care Predictor as well.
We are,
Yes.
and I love it.
Yep.
I do want to add on to that. It's like if we actually, and Jen, that was perfect. If we're looking at people who can do the job, but then have difficulty withholding, right? That's a problem, right? And again, coming back to Care Predictor, that's what we're helping resolve, helping with the holding of that space, helping with the holding of those qualities.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in terms of setting people up for success, I'm riffing here on you guys a little bit. Like, I think one of the things that's hard to measure, and it's almost a requirement, is coachability.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
how do you, Dave? How do you look into the coachability of a person, and is coachability an important thing from your perspective as a leader?
Yeah, no, I think it's, of course, super imperative. I guess some of the times when we look at positions and how we attack the HR perspective of it is, and maybe for the conversation, I kind of put things in buckets too. So I have a C-suite scenario, I have a director level scenario.
Yeah.
I org chart it, right? And then I have this professional level, like licensed, clinicians, and then I have a kind of a paraprofessional. And so I kind of attack each one of them different because I think the dynamic, the skill set, the background of each of those buckets has a different approach. And so how it depends to the answer of which one we're talking about. I think overall, everyone has to have a compassion for the client. Everybody has to have an understanding of what we do, because it's not just lip service of what we do, that client care needs to be the #1 priority, whether you're in the C-suite or whether you're on the floor. And that's, most people are going to say that, but really, even though my accountant, doesn't understanding, he needs to understand what we do so he can operate at the highest level. So that compassion and that coachability, many of the people don't come from our field, so that I have to coach them and teach them and understand what we really do. And so the coachability is mandatory, in my opinion.
I would agree.
Thank you.
And then how to maintain that then.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's perfect. Again, you've identified those elements, but then what's the bridge from being able to identify what those different qualities are amongst those buckets, and then how to build the bridge and then maintain the bridge, and then also allow that bridge to grow and evolve and become more distinct and ornate, that's reflective of not only the qualities that you're hoping to bring to your treatment facility, but also for the organization, for the world at large, for the industry at large. How are we contributing to that bridge getting stronger and maintaining that?
Anything to add on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that we're really evolving in this area of thought. It used to be that we would just expect people to come to us fully formed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Fully embracing their professional persona, understanding everything about their position before we bring them in, having all the qualities that it takes to be successful, and then just turning them loose without support to then go and be successful. My thinking around that has really changed, and I think I've shifted from looking at that resume full of skill set and experience to really looking at those key qualities that I want in an individual to round out my team. And so, those are things like resilience, EQ, high EQ. I mean, those I want to see coachability. That's something that I'm looking for. Are you going to be able to work with whatever comes your way? Far more important to me than their CV.
Yeah. For me as a leader, outside when I was a banker for 30 years, maybe a little longer, but I think it was 30, and I came into this vertical about a decade ago. The thing that I found myself being most passionate about was people. The thing that I have been most perplexed by is people. Can you guys relate to that? Is there anybody who want to talk about that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Let's change it up. Something else.
I mean, of course, one of the things that we know is that connection really helps with healing. It's essential to healing. It's essential to what we are driven by as humans. We're seeking connection. So of course we want people. But then when you're actually in that scenario, even like this scenario where we're at right now, it could be intimidating, right? Talking to somebody one-on-one, that could be intimidating. That first moment where you walk in as a fresh clinician out of grad school with your patient in front of you, that's intimidating. So we want to be with people, we want to connect with people, but then it can be intimidating too. So then how do we navigate the qualities that we need to be able to fulfill our want to connect, but also maintain it, grow it, do better with it, et cetera, I think is the question we should always be asking ourselves.
So you're sort of saying there's need for a better solution too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, especially in the industry. Yeah.
Dave, you got some insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the people are the greatest asset and the greatest challenge, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right. 100%.
That's what you said, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't disagree. I think that it's the biggest line item on the financials, right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest challenge from the perspective of how that human interaction works to ensure, I'll put my CEO hat on, like, how do I retain my employees, keep the culture positive, which greatly helps my business, which greatly helps my outcomes.
Yeah.
And so if I can build a strong culture, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so to that point, I have to be compassionate and understanding that what the asset they are and pay them well and create a benefits program and do the nuts and bolts to make that. But what's that secondary part to continue to manage that emotional side of things in a hardcore business, you know? We have centennial events in our facilities on a very regular basis, and how do I manage those personalities to make sure that they feel supported as a company?
Yes.
My line is like, I don't want to be us and them. It's just us.
That's right.
And although I'm in this state and you're in that state, how do you feel the connection?
Yeah.
And how do I do those things with data, with understanding?
That's right.
And so, you know, it's a constant conversation
Yeah.
as we evolve as a country and as a human, you know, the generations. I mean, I've got a teenager, you know, like all these different dynamics of all these personalities, and how do I work with all those different people to make sure I have a positive culture which immediately permeates down to the clients and the staff.
Yeah.
Immediately,
100%.
you know.
Yeah.
And so it's a constant conversation, and I don't know if that was an answer.
No, that was great.
I don't.
It's great.
To be.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a constant conversation.
It needs to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
I think the challenge of really meeting the workforce where they're at and maintaining well-being, wellness. What if burnout itself is not looked at as an inevitable side effect, but what if it was potentially a data problem? How are you using any data or insights or metrics that will help you sort of intervene, not react, and not get to the problem, not be too late to be able to support the workforce. Our workforce often says they have this empathy tank, and the empathy tank can run low, right? And so how do we refill it? How do we refill it before they quit, and how do we refill it before they burn out? What would you say about that, Jen?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we should really be focused on. I mean, I think if we're building culture like you're describing, Dave, we need to zero right in on the heart of this. For us, I'm really always trying to look forward and use, kind of predictive indicators as opposed to sort of looking backwards at my crew spread out on the floor because they're just exhausted and completely wiped. Where we have workforce injuries, we have people going out on, medical leave, we have, all the classic indications. I'd rather be looking forward, and a couple of the things that we're looking at, one is time to document. So interestingly, if we have somebody who's a really reliable documenter, a clinician who's a really reliable documenter, and all of a sudden their time to document goes from 24 hours to 36 to 48 to 72 hours, there's something going on, right?
Yeah.
And so we really need to zero in there and figure out what it is. That's a great time for an intervention. I think that we think of
You say you don't take a punitive approach when you're doing
Oh,
that
no,
kind of thing.
not at
What's
all.
give me a little, what would be the intervention?
Yeah, so then we want to zero in and figure out what's going on, right? And I think, we used to, historically, we kind of look at that as a time management issue. It's like, oh, that's a you problem.
Yeah.
You've got
Right.
a problem with your time management. You can't get this done in the, 8 minutes that we've allocated for you today to get that accomplished. And, but it's a we problem. It's a systemic issue. And so we will then figure out what the heck is going on. Like, are we
That's
being
a great
reasonable?
way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as behavioral health leaders, we're always looking at productive FTEs, and we're using 27 different metrics to measure that interaction. But the reality is that that is a cultural issue, and we need to take a look at that, whatever the intervention needs to be. Another quick area that we're looking at is PTO accrual. So it's generally the ones who are most burned out who are not taking their PTO. So if they've got this giant PTO bank, I'm going to really suggest that perhaps you take some time for some self-care. Those two tend to be correlated.
Those people tend to be the high performers too?
Oh, gosh.
The ones who are carrying the heavy load?
Always.
Right.
And they're the ones that we're going to lose
That's right.
in turnover, right? They're the ones who are going to crash and burn. And they're our highest performers, they're our most valuable employees, and they're the ones that we want to keep, we want to invest in.
It's sort of incumbent upon us as leaders then to really look out for them when maybe they're not able to look out for themselves.
100%. Absolutely.
Bringing up a really good point.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do really briefly is kind of pulse surveys with our team. And so just weekly sending out, it could literally be one question, on a scale of 1 to 5, how supported do you feel by your leadership this week?
Yeah.
And it's not so much about those individual responses, but about the trending. And so, if we see a drop in that or it's starting to trend in the wrong way, again, it's a cultural issue. We need to get in and figure out what the heck's going on.
You know, I've been accused of being intimidating by my
What?
staff. No, I mean, it's a thing, and I think we have to be careful because power itself can be intimidating leadership, and so we have to be economical, I think, with our approach sometimes. And I've learned, especially in behavioral health, the approach that I use with this workforce isn't the same approach that I could use in the banking or corporate America.
Yeah.
It's a
Totally true.
completely different approach. Dave, what do you think about that?
Which part? The teddy bear part?
Yeah.
I've never heard that. The intimidating part. I think all of that great, and the data, and it grinds on me to think, oh man, we should do that. And that's so great points. I think that, from my desk, what I try to do is to just create a culture and an understanding that it's acceptable. I think what I heard, which was a great point, was, is it acceptable to take your PTO? Is it acceptable?
Yes.
And there are still leaders within the companies that I work for that don't find it, certainly a very punitive approach to either taking time off or whatever, or fill in the blank, right? Anything from maternity leave to, PTO and all of that work. And my answer always is, that is the complete wrong way to do it. You have to preach good boundaries. You have to preach that. So I try to do it amongst my own staff. And again, hopefully that permeates a culture to where those things are acceptable, not only acceptable, but supported and almost mandatory.
That's
I mean, my COO is the same. I mean, redlining 80 hours a week, and I said, I'm turning your phone off. I'm turning your access off. You're taking a couple days off, and it's non-negotiable. Like, and if you exercise that kind of behavior, the people that work for you are going to do that, and they're going to burn out. And relapse and all the things in our field that crushes our employees.
That's right.
Is an absolute conversation that needs to be talked about, again, a regular, but it needs to be done by actions. Top line, to me, again, these big companies, you have to find acceptable, and, I have a use it or lose it. I got into it with a senior VP, it's February, and what happened to my PTO? I said, no, PTO, you lose it because you need to take it, and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
It's not some punitive thing that I want to do to save money as a company. It's the exercise that you need to use your time off to remain healthy, because you can't give away what you don't have. So take your time so you can come to work refreshed and be an excellent asset to the company. I'm selfish, that's what I want.
Well said.
So,
I think it's physiologically and psychologically impossible to sustain yourself in giving care without taking time off, right?
100%.
Without refreshing. And I think we don't realize that sometimes, we think, hey, hey, keep going. No, don't keep going, to your point. I love your approach.
Yeah.
Dr. Mala, what would you say about that?
Burnout is not mysterious. There are signs and symptoms. So think about the SUD, mental health arena, relapse, right? There are signs and symptoms that lead up to it. It's not just something that we have to be reactionary to, or we should be reactionary to. We should be looking at the signs, right?
Yes.
We should be taking note of what our own practices as leaders are, because that is also reinforcing that cultural expectation. Or on the flip side, right, if you're the leader who's banking all of your PTO, I'm going to admit I've been there. I've done this. I've banked it. Yeah, I've banked it because I have thought I have to keep going in order to do the work, get it done, prove it, et cetera, et cetera. And then your workforce could either be like, oh, I've got to do the same thing. Oh my gosh, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. Or it's going to be the flip, like, oh, she's got it. She'll do it.
Yeah.
So what? I'm fine. You can phone it in.
Yeah.
So we have to monitor those things across the levels.
You're making me think of an old reality that I have come to really embrace, and that is that our greatest strength is often our greatest weakness.
Yeah.
Now, how does that not apply to our workforce too? And how do we not address that?
Yeah.
Because that's common to any person in this room or any person in the industry.
Yeah.
How do we support them in that area? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, coming back to Care Predictor, you know, you look at the assessment and the results that come back, and maybe that one, I'll use again myself as the example, that propensity to not use vacation time is because I feel like I have to prove something. Where does that come from and why?
Yeah.
Right? So being able to sit with the people that you're working with, that you're managing, or even as the therapist, talking to the manager and having that reflective moment and creating a space as a leader where that's safe to do that.
Yes.
It's not punitive, that's imperative.
Yeah, we talk about culture of safety.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's psychological safety.
Psychological safety.
Is really important
Yep.
in our workplace.
Right.
And I not just in behavioral healthcare, I think in any workplace.
In any
right?
workplace, yeah.
Jen, you have anything to add to that?
No, I do. Well, yes.
Yes.
I do think that cultural development is our responsibility as leaders. And both of you spoke to that really eloquently, and particularly about the example that we set as
Yeah.
leaders. I think for the most part, our teams pick up on both of those things. A, I need to grind like she does, and B, she's got this, and so
Yeah.
I'm not going to lean into assist.
Yeah.
And so I just, you're spot on there. But it is our responsibility to create the culture, and the culture is our people.
Yep.
So that means, recruiting, hiring, supporting, retaining, creating stickiness.
Yep.
That's our responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And that's our greatest asset.
So we had a good conversation earlier at the table outside, and thinking about the importance of the workforce and the impact and the performance the workforce has, scalability, how turnover is a silent killer of EBITDA, getting the right people in the right seats, and we want to see capital and investors thrive in this space, but it's still, how do we get to the understanding of, human capital, and how do we use tech, and how do we use innovation to ensure, long-term success of the operation and the clinical integrity of the platform. Now, I know you have a lot of passion about this, and so I want to hear from you on what you have to say about this.
Yeah, you know me so well. I mean, I really have, for many, many years, led as a leader of my team, right? They are my greatest passion and my biggest commitment. I also recognize that the bottom line is significant. And that bridge between margin and mission is critical, and it's critical for me to develop and to hold primary. There are 3 ways that turnover just kills EBITDA, and that is the cost of recruiting, which we all know. I mean, it's ridiculous, $3,000 to $10,000 per person or more, depending on the position, and certainly the pace with which the turnover happens. I mean, that number just grows exponentially. So just that alone is a killer. The other is using contract labor or agency labor, which is even worse. And I see the CFO in the room nodding her head. That's really challenging. And finally, if we have to diminish bed capacity or we have a bunch of missed appointments, we're just leaving revenue on the table. So those are things that I think we need to be really cognizant of as investors, as behavioral health leaders. Turnover really impacts our bottom line, and it's up to me to create organizational efficiency that drives our revenue and protects that bottom line. And so doing that in a couple of different ways. We really are looking at building a tech stack that will lean into this. One, and I know you're all hearing nothing but AI these days, right? That's all that's on our lips, but really there are some very practical applications. And so certainly the ambient AI for scribing, for documentation. I mean, I just keep coming back to documentation because it is such a grind for our clinicians. And I think that it causes such dissatisfaction with their jobs and such burnout. And so that's certainly one of them, whether it's Kipu Intelligence or Sunwave Mara or something like that. certainly the agentic AI to do kind of those, the grunt work of our teams. This is not just for clinicians, but in a lot of different areas of our business. Take that off the plate so that the humans can really be front facing with the patients.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of all that nonsense. And then I think, I'm not up here to toot Care Predictor's horn, but I'm here because I really value Care Predictor helping my business grow and become more successful. And so we are also looking at that. We need people applications in our AI, and those that can help us with some predictive analysis of what a good hire would look like, how to retain good talent. And so, leaning into the technology, I think our tech stack right now is really important in terms of the bottom line. And so, yeah, long answer, but I think at the end of the day, it's up to us to protect that bottom line by taking care of our greatest asset, which is our people.
100%. We talked about turnover was a killer of EBITDA. One of the things that we've noticed too is that call-outs. It's almost like an interesting metric and a leading indicator to turnover.
Yeah.
And it's really about the well-being of the workforce. Do you have any insight into how call-outs might be impacting your organization, Dave, on your side, and how do you measure that? How do you support that?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to manipulate my way through the answer to this question. I don't think we have a big call-out issue from the perspective, but it gives me a little anxiety. Like, do I have it and I don't know it? I think that when I look at some of those things, to me, it's the same conversation: work hours, coverage, those kind of challenges that the organization face from, again, a perspective of making the employees feel comfortable and not, feel the need to manipulate and call out and have challenges and the turnover and all the things that are faced with the large organization like that. And so, I think that managing the staff to make sure that they're showing up to work every day, to me, is just like this fundamental thing we talk about all the time, whether it's a call out, whether it's a not showing up, whether it's, retention problems, all of the challenges you face of just plain, this turnover bucket or showing up to work bucket, are just something we have to face on a daily basis in these high volume businesses. So not bad. I thought that.
Thank you. Good. I've been throwing you guys off because I'm not sticking to the script, but
That's
I appreciate you.
No, those are good. That's good.
Dr. Mulla, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, turnover, it erodes the EBITDA, but it also erodes clinical integrity, right? So I personally, going back to the original question, I am looking for systems that are going to help us with really being able to look at a dashboard that tells me as a leader, wait a second, where are we going with everything, and where are all of those elements at for my entire company holistically, that holistic view, so that I can maintain that clinical integrity. Because in my mind, if I am, then I'm going to reduce turnover. I'm going to improve my culture. I'm going to be able to live the speak that I'm trying to reinforce. So that's what I would add.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So under the big, header topic of AI, the future of work in our space, it's controversial,
Yeah.
Some people are uncomfortable. It's the efficacy of AI, technology in general. So if you look forward in 5 years, will technology's greatest contribution be in directly treating the patient or the client, or in providing the clinician or the workforce the breathing room to do the human interaction again that's really needed? I have a very specific vision around that. What do you guys think? Where do you think it's best? You want to lead off?
Sure. I think they're going to try. I think, there's the attempts to make AI actually be the replacement, or the first solution, the first line of defense, for answering questions, across modalities, medical, therapeutic, et cetera. But my hope is that we're leading into an era where AI will actually allow us to remember our own sense of humanity. And again, coming back to connection and really taking the time that we gain from being able to use AI to reinforce that and then make us better clinicians, make us better leaders. What are we going to do with the extra time? Focus on all of those elements on that dashboard so that we can enhance all of the above.
Yeah.
Right?
Well said. Dave, you got a view on that?
Yeah, no, I think that to me it's kind of a two-part answer. I think that there's the support piece of pride for the workforce and what it's going to support for all the administrative tasks and all the low-hanging fruit that we're talking about in the computer world, kind of saying then this connection with people. What my fear, and I don't know if I want to predict that, is that my experience with working with addiction is that the client wants to take the easier, softer way. And the challenge to somebody in recovery is speaking to another human. So if I have the opportunity to speak to a machine, I'm going to choose it all day, every day.
Sure.
And so my push and my fear of how do I support this industry and this drive into where this can be a true asset in the future, which is a wonderful asset of all the vendors and all these cool things that it can do for us. And not take away the connection, because that's imperative and essential and mandatory to recovery, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
I strongly and wholeheartedly agree with you, because my mission is to use AI to optimize the very thing that is the agent of healing, and that is human connection.
Correct.
And that will never be replaced, although we will try. We will try.
Oh, you
try.
bet.
That's one of the things that we've seen about us as humanity and innovators. We try to replace the authentic with the synthetic, right? And so I don't know if you saw on C-SPAN or on the news where the Instagram CEO was talking about the fact that that the social media is not addictive in itself, and I think it tends to be addictive because of the algorithms, because of the attempt to replace authentic community and socialization with something that we're not wired for.
Right.
And so it does do a lot of damage. Any thoughts about that in general?
That particularly, I saw it and I kind of gasped when I saw it.
Yeah.
I thought, what a crazy response in this day and age. Like, that just seems so
we have
crazy
this
to me.
But if we're not careful, the reason
Yeah.
I bring it here now, if we're not careful as an industry, we could make the same mistake.
Yeah.
We could, for the intent of trying to do good, we could do harm. And I think that's what we have to be careful for.
We do need to be careful. I mean, like, what is the number one reason? Last year, I think there's a citation that tells us, a study that tells us that last year's use of AI, biggest use of AI, any guesses?
Yeah.
Anyone? No? No guesses? Connection, advice, companionship. That's what people were using ChatGPT for.
That's the hunger. That's what we want.
Yep.
We're
That's
so
what we want.
lonely.
We have a predisposition for that, right?
Wow.
Yep.
Well, we're coming to the end here. I've got one last question for you. One word answer, please. In exactly one word, how would you describe what is the backbone of a thriving behavioral health organization? One word. That's a hard one. So,
It's one of my favorite ones.
what would you say? What's one word to describe a thriving backbone of behavioral health?
I want to qualify it in 1,000 ways, but it's super clear to me, and that's integrity.
I love that. Thank you. For you, Dr. Mala?
I love that one too. Trust.
That's close. Yeah. They're all adjacent, Dave.
Yeah.
You stole the two best ones.
Come on, Dave.
Compassion.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the alignment
Yeah.
Yeah.
up here in one word.
Yeah.
Any questions for this panel in closing?
So admittedly, I own a firm that embeds ourselves into actual talent solutions for companies, and I'm a daughter of an IO psychologist, so love that. But have you guys done any analysis as leaders as to how much you spend to acquire, recruit, train, assess, and actually invest in your employees, and what that actually brings back to your EBITDA in terms of turnover? Like that, really the dollars to dollars analysis as leaders?
It's a really great question. I find myself doing the reverse of that, quantifying where the loss is with turnover. But I actually love that, and you're sparking something for me, which is that I need to go back and we were literally just talking about this at lunch.
Yeah.
I really need to go back and do some digging and try to put the data together, because that's a powerful
Great question.
figure. It is a great question. Thank you.
Fantastic.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we've seen the impact to revenue in 6 figures and beyond by doing this, by investing and by getting these insights and adding this to your tech stack, as you said. We've seen year over year, clients having anywhere from $400,000 to $1 million lift in revenue retention, right? Which goes right to EBITDA.
Right.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty invasive analysis at a private equity-backed company back in 22 to 24 that I was at, and had a wonderful CFO. So this question came up, and we were, because of the massive turnover and the heavy nursing, we had 700 nurses, and it was a challenging situation. So the financial analysis was turnover dollars. What's the formula? Turnover, retention, orientation equals X. So I was trying to get the board to reallocate this, $500,000 over into this other part of assessing this, of how do we drive into the funnel of assessment. And it was down to a dollar figure, because that's the only language they use. And so, yeah, I think that there are some ways to attach a dollar to retention and attainment and put that right on a financial. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nope.
They didn't give me the money, by the way. A little.
We have another question.
Yeah, this was so great. Thank you so much. You mentioned time to document, PTO accrual, and call-outs as measures that you would have on like a well-being dashboard that you would review. I'm curious, how would you reviewing that weekly, and are there any other metrics that you would recommend putting on it? I think that's to you, Jen.
Thank you. I mean, I come from corporate behavioral health, where we use massive amounts of data to measure productivity. And so there are kind of those old KPIs of looking at how the clinical hours are spent, how much time is being spent on documentation, how much group time, all of the above. Those, though, to me, are much more cultural
those ones
leading
I'm interested
indicators,
in. Yeah,
and I really value those today in a way that I haven't in the past. I've been so focused on the rigidity of kind of that corporate structure, and when you're managing 500 locations or 700 employees or whatever, that you need all that. But
I think we're successfully tracking all of the productivity stuff really well, but I've just started. I'm new to this space, so this event's been awesome for me because I've learned so much.
Good.
And I've come in from a culture and how can we, improve the well-being. So I'm really interested in this conversation.
Sentiment analysis I would recommend as well. Like really hear their voice. Like engage them, use their engagement surveys, really understand how they're feeling. They do have, they have sentiment. So we recommend sentiment analysis.
But I think the challenge is, I feel, because we have this, and I think this is another cultural shift we need to make from this kind of badge of honor of, I'm working super hard, because the executive team, they hold a little bit too much of a badge of honor of how much they're working, and that's something I really want to shift, and I have to start with that from the top down. But I want some actual metrics so that I can say, actually, no, this is, because I can't, they're not going to say, I'm overworked, because their boss's boss is overworking. Like, I want to shift this from my CEO down. So I want the numbers so that I can say, I'll tell you actually that you're overworked, because they won't admit it.
Right.
You also asked about cadence. So what I've done in systems is look at, especially when you're trying to reform the way you are, I would be looking at it minimally, month to month, then quarterly, then biannually, then annually. Okay, and have those numbers ready to go. You do that with your new hires starting from the beginning, and then once with the individuals who are already in the company, you're starting now, and you do that retrospective to present date and look at what the patterns are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. I think that concludes our time together. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you all.